Hi, my name's Greg Handel. I'm an elder at New England Chapel. I'm also a licensed psychologist. And in that capacity, I've been working with individuals who have suffered from trauma for years. Trauma is something that's affected many people's lives throughout history. And this trauma that's happening now because of COVID-19 is no different. With one exception, this is a trauma that as a society we're going through together in different ways and different shapes and different forms, but we're all experiencing it in one way or another. For instance, I was reading about a volunteer who came up from Texas. He heard what was going on in New York and he wanted to come up and help out. God bless him. And he comes to New York. First day on the job, his supervisor tells him, "Welcome to hell." His first job was to take a body of someone who was recently deceased and try to find a place to put it because the makeshift morgue that they put together was just full to capacity. Another example of a traumatic event would be a someone that I counsel whose mother is in a nursing home, and they were notified that their mother is COVID-19 positive. She wanted to desperately see her mother, but was told that they couldn't because the nursing home is now under quarantine, and she doesn't have access to her mother, and she doesn't know what's going to happen to her. Another example is two couples, both with very high powered executive positions. They're working at home now during this pandemic, but they don't have access to childcare for their kids. So both of them try to juggle taking care of the kids while the other one's doing their business. But the tension between the two of them mount as neither of them making their deadlines for work because both their days are cut in half trying to do childcare and the chaos that surrounds the home. And well, you can see how tension can mount. These are all very real problems affecting very real people, and the emotional damage that comes from these events we call trauma. Yes, they're different severity, they differ in their details, but they're trauma that are not going away on their own, and they're probably going to be some damaged emotions, certainly damaged relationships that are going to go on past the pandemic. Um, this is something that really none of us have ever experienced in any one of our lifetimes, this kind of communal trauma, with the exception of there's anyone alive from the days of World War II. My dad fought World War II and he had passed away. And of course, my mother remembers having a brother who was in the World War. She has passed away. So there's not many people around who remembered those days. But one thing about that last World War is that as a nation, we had a common enemy. And that's similar to what's happening now. We as a community, we as a society have a common enemy. And because of that, amongst the stories of these tragedies that we hear, we also hear stories of really positive communal support that's going on. A couple that I counsel, um, she is going through cancer treatment, and it takes the living life out of her. And this is like the worst time to have to go through cancer treatment. And that's why I'm counseling the couple. It's affecting both of them emotionally. So that if that wasn't traumatic enough, then being isolated from the rest of their family members adds to that. But the husband told me of a story where he called his wife to the window, and she goes to the window, and there are 30 neighbors all out there standing 6 to 10 feet apart, but having a prayer meeting for this woman in the street in front of their condo, which was such a blessing to them. Another friend of mine told me about in her condo where they have this, they all meet at 6. They all stand at least 6 feet apart, and they share, but they all drink 6 ounces of their favorite beverage together. These are ways that we're trying to cope with this pandemic as a community. Personally, I get emails all the time reaching out to me for advice, and just asking for some assurance that, in fact, I had this wonderful man that I counsel a young man with autism. And at the end of our session, he said, "Greg, I just have one more question." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Are we going to be okay?" And that people just want that assurance. We can tell ourselves that, but there's something a little bit more powerful when you hear it from another voice. And it's amazing how supportive that can be and how much strength it can give us emotionally just to hear from someone else that, yes, it's going to be okay. We are going to make it. That encouragement goes a long way to instilling hope. And hope is the key for us to get through this crisis. Um, Hope plays a vital role in resilience, and studies have shown that for years. How well we endure hardship has a lot to do with how much hope we have. Studies have documented that sense of hope mobilizes our perseverance and motivates our endurance. In fact, there's many studies that show that hopeful workers, those workers that express a high level of hope, tend to have less absenteeism and tend to have a higher productivity. And hope is powerful, and it's more than just not quitting. Hope brings a lot more to the table. Hope can have a positive impact on our physical health. Medical studies have shown that belief and expectation in healing, two main components in hope, belief and expectation, um, have been linked to the release of endorphins that often block pain. Um, Hope also has been shown to those people who express high levels of hope has often shown to have a very positive impact on physiological functions such as respiration, circulation, and our actual motor functioning, our ability to move. So hope has this widespreading effect that isn't just emotional, it's physical as well. Um, but hope can play a major impact in our ability to access and gain social supports that is so important to us. Hope has shown that people who express high levels of hope tend to have stronger social skills. They also tend to be less lonely, which would make sense if we are better at interacting with one another, then we're going to be less likely to be alone. But high hope people also show to have closer, more intimate connection with other people. They also tend to report that they enjoy interactions with others more, and they show. But another key point here is not only do they enjoy the interactions of other people, but they seem to have a greater interest in the goals and aspirations of other people. Um, this actually has a biblical basis to it. In Romans 15:13, Paul writes, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." This sense of hope is something that God himself, who dwells within us, wants to radiate from us and give us the strength to endure. And there's a purpose behind it. Richard Rohr writes that hardship is the only thing that has ever produced greatness. He asserts that if you look throughout history, the only thing that has achieved greatness or to produce greatness is hardship. And he says it's the world's best kept secret, which is amazing because hardship is the only thing that ever has produced greatness, but we don't want to admit it. We don't want to admit that. Now, that doesn't mean that we look for hardship and so we could achieve great things. Hardship will come our way. There's no one who's immune from hardship. Hardship will come. It depends on what we do with that hardship. that determines if we can achieve great things. If you think Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, we often like to think these people achieved great things in spite of suffering. But the reality is they achieve greatness because of suffering. Um, None of us have contributed to the hardship that's prevailing around us now. Um, However, we can take heart in the fact that we're not alone, that we all are going through this together. We're all experiencing it together. And in that, we can have hope. In that, we can have hope that as a community, we're supporting one another, we can strengthen one another, we can encourage one another with those external words that we just say, you know what, we're going to make it. We're going to make it together. And then through that, if we allow God to work through us and through one another in the midst of this tragic pandemic, we can produce great things in the midst of all this hardship. Because after all, hardship is the only thing that ever produced greatness anyway. Thanks for listening.